Blood drips from Marco's cracked lips onto the plastic debris he calls a raft. 28 days. The sun burns his blistered skin as a 12-foot tiger shark circles beneath him. His throat feels like sandpaper. No water in 2 days. The pirates took everything. His boat, his crew, his life. The shark's fin breaks the surface again, closer this time. His makeshift paddle, a broken piece of his fishing boat's door, won't keep it away much longer. His muscles are too weak to fight. The taste of blood in his mouth grows stronger. He sees his daughter's face in the clouds. Maria. She's smiling. He promised her he'd come home. The shark's tail flicks water onto his raft. It's time. Either he dies fighting or... Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn breaks over the Thompson farm, as it has for the past 2 decades. Marcus Thompson moves with measured precision through his morning routine, each action betraying years of military discipline beneath his farmer's facade. His weathered hands, equally skilled with weapons as with crops, methodically check the perimeter of his property, an old habit he never quite shook. Rex, his Belgian Malinois, shadows his movements with the same tactical awareness that once made them an unbeatable. A team in Afghanistan. The dog's ears prick at every sound, his training as sharp now as it was during their service days. Some partnerships never fade, even years after leaving the battlefield. Marcus pauses at his barn's entrance, scanning the horizon. 20 years of peace haven't dulled his instincts. His eyes still track movement patterns, his mind automatically identifying approach vectors and defensive positions. The farm might look like any other to passing travelers. Neat rows of wheat stretching toward the horizon, red barns standing proud against the morning sky, white farmhouse gleaming in the distance. But beneath its peaceful exterior lies a carefully maintained sanctuary. Inside the barn, behind the ordinary farm tools and equipment, a hidden room houses remnants of his past life. Weapons, tactical gear, communications equipment, all meticulously maintained but untouched for years, not out of nostalgia, but necessity. Marcus learned long ago that peace is often paid for with preparation. The morning news drones from an old radio as he tends to his crops. Reports of increased criminal activity in neighboring counties barely register as he works, though his mind automatically files away the information. A lifetime of tactical awareness doesn't disappear just because you trade combat boots for work boots. Sarah Wilson, his elderly neighbor, waves from her porch as he drives his tractor past their shared property line. He returns the gesture, appreciation mixing with protective instinct. The Wilsons represent everything he now protects, the simple, peaceful life he fought so hard to preserve during his service years. As the sun climbs higher, Marcus allows himself a rare moment of reflection. The farm has been his redemption, his way of growing life instead of taking it. Each season brings new crops, new hope, a chance to bury the violence of his past deeper beneath the fertile soil. But like the weapons hidden in his barn, some things can never be fully buried. Rex suddenly stiffens, nose testing the air. Marcus instinctively catalogues the dog's behavior. This isn't the alert for local wildlife or passing vehicles. This is something different, something wrong. For a moment time seems to blur, and he's back in the Hindu Kush, reading his partner's signals before a mission goes hot. But this is just his farm. His peace, his quiet life away from violence and death. Still, as he watches Rex's continued alertness, that familiar tension begins to coil in his muscles. 20 years of quiet doesn't erase 2 decades of combat training. Something is coming. He can feel it in his bones, in the way Rex's hackles rise, in the subtle shift of wind across his land. Marcus Thompson may look like a simple farmer now, but beneath the surface, the warrior never truly retired. He just found different fields to patrol. The local farmers' market bustles with weekend activity as Marcus sets up his stand. His organic wheat and fresh vegetables have become a staple for the community over the years. Children weave between the stalls, their laughter a reminder of why he chose this life after hanging up his uniform. Here, among the peaceful chaos of small-town commerce, he can almost forget the weight of the dog tag still hanging around his neck. Sheriff Mills stops by, as he does every Saturday, picking up his usual bag of produce. "Heard anything unusual out your way, Marcus?" The question seems casual, but there's an undercurrent of concern in his voice. "Got reports of some strange activities in the outlying farms." Marcus maintains his relaxed posture, but his mind catalogues the sheriff's subtle tells. The slight tension around his eyes, the way his hand rests closer to his holster than usual. "Nothing specific, Jim, but Rex has been more alert than usual these past few days." The sheriff nods, understanding the significance. Everyone in town knows Rex isn't just a farm dog. They've seen the way he moves, the way he watches. Some remember when Marcus first arrived with him, both still carrying themselves like soldiers fresh from deployment. Sarah and George Wilson approach his stand, providing a welcome interruption to the loaded conversation. The elderly couple has become like family over the years. Sarah's homemade pies often find their way to his porch, while George's mechanical expertise has helped keep his farm equipment running smoothly. "Those tomatoes looking mighty fine, Marcus," George comments, his weathered hands selecting a few, choice specimens. "Though I noticed some went missing from our garden yesterday, probably those darned raccoons again." Marcus's internal alarm bells ring faintly. The Wilsons' garden sits close to their house, and raccoons don't usually venture that near to occupied buildings. "Want me to take a look at your security lights? Might need adjusting." Sarah pats his arm affectionately. "Always looking out for us, aren't you? Just like that nice young man who stopped by yesterday asking about local farms. Said he was writing a piece for some magazine." The alarm bells ring louder. No legitimate journalist would canvass remote farms without prior contact. Marcus keeps his voice casual as he helps Sarah pack her vegetables. What kind of questions was he asking? "Oh, just about the layout of local properties, who lives where. Normal things." Sarah's innocent response carries dark implications, and though George thought it odd when he asked about police response times out here, Marcus exchanges a knowing look with Sheriff Mills, who lingers nearby. The pieces are starting to align: missing vegetables, suspicious questions, Rex's unusual behavior. His tactical mind automatically starts mapping potential threats, escape routes, defensive positions. The rest of the market passes in a blur of friendly conversations and commerce, but Marcus's awareness remains heightened. He catalogues every unfamiliar face, every unusual question. The peaceful facade of his new life suddenly feels paper-thin, ready to tear at the slightest provocation. As he packs up his stand, a news alert chirps from multiple phones around the market. 3 dangerous convicts have escaped from the maximum security prison 50 miles north. The description of one matches Sarah's friendly journalist. The warrior inside Marcus, the one he's kept carefully contained for 20 years, begins to stir. His peaceful life may soon collide with the violent world he left behind, and he knows exactly which one will win. The drive home from the farmer's market takes on a different character, with the news of the escaped convicts still fresh in Marcus's mind. His truck moves steadily down the dusty road, but his eyes constantly scan the tree line. Old instincts, resurfacing with each passing mile. Rex sits more alert than usual in the passenger seat, his nose working overtime through the open window. The first sign appears innocent enough. His gate isn't fully latched. Marcus always closes it with 2 clicks. Today, it's only caught on the first. He parks the truck at the entrance, hand instinctively reaching for the weapon he no longer carries. "Stay," he commands Rex, who watches intently as Marcus inspects. The gate's hinges, fresh scratches mar the metal near the lock. Amateur work, but intentional. Someone tested the gate's strength, probably during the night. Marcus follows the fence line, finding more evidence. Broken branches, disturbed grass, patterns, a cigarette butt still carrying the distinct smell of prison-issued tobacco. Inside the barn, things are subtly wrong. His tools, always arranged with military precision, show signs of examination. The heavy padlock on his storage room remains untouched, but dusty footprints betray someone's interest in it. They've been scouting his property, learning his routine, probably watching him leave for the market this morning. The farmhouse appears untouched, but Marcus knows better than to trust appearances. He conducts a thorough sweep, moving room by room with Rex at his side. Everything seems in place, yet the air feels different, disturbed, like the lingering presence after someone's uninvited visit. His satellite phone, hidden beneath loose floorboards in the pantry, comes out for the first time in years. The battery still holds a charge. He's maintained it religiously, like everything else from his past life. Marcus punches in a number from memory. Sierra Collection Point. A crisp voice answers. Authentication code. Romeo 7 Delta 9 3. Marcus speaks softly, decades of training returning in an instant. A pause. Identity confirmed. Go ahead, Marcus. Need a situation report on the prison break. 3 subjects possibly heading my way. The response comes quickly. Confirmed hostiles. Leader is Viktor Petrov. Ring any bells? Marcus's blood runs cold. Petrov, the name brings back flashes of his last mission. A high-stakes extraction gone wrong. A brutal firefight in a Kandahar marketplace. Civilian casualties. Petrov was the target's head of security, a man whose brutality matched his cunning. Marcus had put him down with 2 rounds to the chest, or so he'd thought. Copy that, Marcus responds, his voice steady despite the revelation. Any other chatter? Nothing. Concrete. But Marcus, Petrov's been asking questions about you for years. The prison break might not be random. The pieces click into place. The careful surveillance, the precise timing, the focus on his property. This isn't a random farm raid by escaped convicts. It's a calculated move by a man who's had 20 years to plan his revenge. Rex growls low, eyes fixed on the window. The sun has begun to set, casting long shadows across the farm. Perfect cover for men who know how to use darkness to their advantage. Marcus ends the call and returns the phone to its hiding place. In the distance, he hears the Wilsons' dinner bell, a daily ritual that suddenly feels ominous. They're too close, too vulnerable, too perfect as leverage. The peaceful farmer begins to fade, replaced by the operator who's been lying dormant for 2 decades. Marcus moves to the hidden room in his barn, punching in a code he's never forgotten. The arsenal inside has gathered dust, but remains meticulously maintained. As he begins to gear up, a new sound catches his attention. A vehicle approaching, moving slowly, like someone trying not to draw attention. They're here. An old blue pickup truck limps up Marcus's driveway, its engine coughing like it's on its last legs. 3 men inside, dressed in work clothes that don't quite fit right, the kind of clothes you'd grab quickly from a roadside donation bin. Marcus watches from his kitchen window, Rex silent but alert beside him. The performance is almost perfect. 3 laborers looking for work, complete with worn boots and calloused hands. But Marcus spots the inconsistencies immediately. The driver's posture is too rigid. Tactical awareness disguised as casual observation. The man in the back keeps his left side angled away, concealing a weapon. The third man, though, the third man doesn't bother hiding what he is. Viktor Petrov has aged, but his eyes hold the same cold calculation they did in Kandahar. Prison time has hardened him further, carved new lines into his face, added more grey to his hair. He steps out of the truck with the confidence of a man who's already won. "Hey there," Petrov calls out, his Russian accent carefully softened. "Truck's been giving us trouble. Hoping you might let us use your phone." Marcus steps onto his porch. playing the role of the helpful farmer. Rex stays hidden inside, awaiting commands. "Cell service is pretty spotty out here," he responds, measuring the distance between the men, noting their positions relative to his prepared defensive points. The other two men spread out casually, a standard flanking maneuver poorly disguised. Marcus counts 3 concealed pistols, likely more weapons hidden in the truck. Their body armor shows faintly under their loose shirts. "Shame about the phone," Petrov says, moving closer. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Maybe some water then? Been a long drive." "Running low myself," Marcus replies, noting how Petrov's right hand keeps drifting toward his waistband. "Town's just 20 minutes that way. Garage there can help." With the truck, Petrov stops at the bottom of the porch steps. The pretense bleeds out of his voice. 20 years, Thompson. 20 years in a concrete box, thinking about this moment. His hand moves to his concealed weapon. "Did you really think you could just become a farmer and forget about me?" The other two men drop the act, drawing their weapons. Marcus doesn't move, doesn't flinch. His voice carries the same calm it did 20 years ago when he first put Petrov down. "Last chance, Victor. Drive away." Petrov's laugh carries no humor. "Still the same arrogant American, but this time I have insurance." He pulls out a phone, shows Marcus a live video feed. The Wilsons tied up in their own living room. A fourth man stands guard, weapon trained on Sarah's head. "Shall we discuss terms?" Marcus's expression doesn't change, but inside, the last traces of the peaceful farmer vanish. They didn't just threaten him, they threatened his neighbors, his friends, his new life. They really should have just kept driving. Time slows to a tactical crawl as Marcus processes the situation. The Wilsons' lives in the balance, 3 armed hostiles in front of him, 1 more at the neighbor's house, his arsenal in the barn, currently out of reach. But they've made one critical mistake. They don't know about Rex. "Smart move with the hostages," Marcus says, deliberately shifting his weight forward. Petrov's eyes follow the movement, missing the slight hand signal, dropping by Marcus's side. "Let's talk inside." "No games, Thompson," Petrov snarls, gesturing with his weapon. "You've got something that belongs to me. The drive you took in Kandahar." His finger tightens slightly on the trigger. 20 years of prison gave me plenty of time to track it down. The revelation clicks pieces into place. The intelligence drive containing names of deep cover operatives. Marcus had secured it during the extraction, right before everything went wrong. Before Petrov's men opened fire in that crowded marketplace. The drive's long gone, Victor. Turned it over to command 20 years ago. Petrov's face twists with rage. Lying until the end, I see Rex explodes through the screen door behind Marcus, a black and tan missile of muscle and trained fury. The Belgian Malinois targets the nearest flanking gunman with practiced precision, years of military training unleashed in seconds. The man screams, his weapon discharging harmlessly into the ground as savage jaws lock onto his gun arm. Marcus is moving before the first scream ends. He rolls left as Petrov's shot tears through where he stood, coming up with the backup pistol, strapped under the porch railing. His first shot catches the second flanking man in the shoulder, spinning him down the porch steps. Petrov dives behind his truck, bullets sparking off the metal where he was standing. The sound of gunfire echoes across the farm like thunder, shattering the peaceful afternoon. Through his radio, Petrov's fourth man screams about the dog attacking him. Rex's training partner had circled around during the confrontation, following silent commands. "You're slipping, Victor," Marcus calls out, changing positions. "You should have checked for other service animals. Rex isn't the only one who remembers his training." A burst of automatic fire answers him, punching holes through the farmhouses. Wooden walls. Marcus notes the weapon type from the sound. Prison guards' weapons, probably taken during the escape. Their ammunition will be limited. "I'll execute them," Petrov shouts, desperation creeping into his voice. The old couple dies if you don't surrender. Check your camera again, Marcus responds calmly, allowing himself a grim smile. The feed on Petrov's phone now shows an empty room, rope bindings, discarded. My dogs don't work alone. The rage in Petrov's scream is almost primal. He breaks from cover, charging forward with his weapon blazing. Prison time has made him sloppy, emotional, the same mistake he made in Kandahar. Marcus's shot catches him in the chest, exactly where it did 20 years ago. This time he makes sure to put a second round in Petrov's head. The remaining gunman tries to run, stumbling across the farmyard. Rex takes him down efficiently, holding him until Marcus can secure him. In the distance, police sirens begin to wail. The sheriff must have heard the gunfire. Marcus looks at his farmhouse, bullet-riddled and broken. The peaceful life he'd built. Lies shattered around him, just like the splintered wood of his porch. There's no going back now. The warrior has fully awakened, and there's still work to be done, because even as Petrov bleeds out on his driveway, Marcus knows this isn't over. Men like Petrov always have contingency plans, and somewhere out there, more enemies are watching. Sheriff Mills arrives to find a war zone where a farm once stood. Marcus has the surviving attacker zip-tied and secured, while both Rex and his partner Shadow patrol the perimeter with military precision. The Wilsons, shaken but unharmed, sit in their kitchen drinking tea as if this were any other afternoon. You want to explain this? Mills asks, surveying the bullet-riddled farmhouse, the dead bodies, the shell casings scattered across blood-stained dirt. Home invasion gone wrong, Marcus replies simply, checking his weapons with practiced efficiency. 20 years of peace haven't dulled his muscle memory. They picked the wrong farm. But even as he speaks, his tactical mind races through scenarios. Petrov was too smart for this to be his only play. The intelligence drive he mentioned, presumably still classified after 2 decades, wouldn't have been worth this risk without backup plans. A deputy approaching Petrov's truck suddenly freezes. "Sheriff, got a phone here with a timer counting." And down. Marcus's body moves before his mind fully processes the implications. Everybody down. He tackles the deputy as the truck explodes, sending shrapnel and burning debris across his farmyard. The blast pattern is professional, meant to destroy. Evidence. As the smoke clears, Marcus spots something that makes his blood run cold. Numbers seared into his lawn by carefully placed accelerants: 49 degree 17 521 6N, 123 degree 07 19 2W coordinates. "Jim," he addresses the sheriff, "I need you to evacuate everyone within 5 miles. Now." "What? I can't just—" "That explosion was military grade, time delayed to maximize casualties. Those coordinates—" Marcus pauses, remembering classified briefings from his past life. "They're pointing to something bigger, much bigger." The sheriff studies Marcus's face, seeing the operator emerge fully from behind the farmer's mask. After a moment, he nods. "I'll call in state police for backup." "Won't help." Marcus checks his ammunition, mind already formulating plans. What's coming? It's beyond their training. From his barn's hidden room, Marcus retrieves gear he'd hoped would stay buried: tactical vest, combat boots, encrypted communication equipment. Each piece feels like stepping back in time, but the muscle memory remains sharp. Rex and Shadow fall into formation without prompting as Marcus begins establishing defensive positions. The farm's layout, carefully maintained all these years, now reveals its tactical advantages. Every tree line provides cover. Every rise in the ground offers a firing position. The surviving attacker, still bound, begins to laugh. "You don't even know what's coming, do you? Petrov spent 20 years building a network. That drive you took, it wasn't just about the names on it, it was about what those people were planning. And now they're all coming for you." Marcus secures the last of his defensive perimeter before approaching the prisoner. "How many?" "Enough to turn this farm into a crater." Petrov's death just activated every sleeper cell from here to a shot rings out. The prisoner's head snaps back, a precise bullet hole appearing between his eyes. Marcus drops instantly, scanning for the shooter. The shot came from the tree. "Line, professional distance, perfect placement. Contact North Ridge," he calls out, but no more shots follow. Instead, a phone buzzes in the dead prisoner's pocket. The message on the screen chills Marcus to his core. Phase 2 initiated. All units converge. The farm has become a battlefield, and the enemy is just getting started. Dusk creeps across the farmland, turning familiar shapes into shadowy threats. Marcus moves like a ghost through his wheat fields, years of combat experience guiding each silent step. Rex and Shadow have split up, covering his flanks. The dog's training makes them nearly invisible in the growing darkness. The first team makes amateur mistakes. Their equipment is professional, high-end thermal optics, suppressed weapons, tactical gear, but their movement patterns betray their lack of true field experience. Marcus counts 4 of them, trying to envelop his position from the east. "Just like Kandahar," he whispers to himself, remembering similar nights spent hunting through urban sprawl. But this time, he has the home field advantage. His irrigation system becomes a weapon. A quick adjustment to the pressure sends water spraying across the field, disrupting their thermal imaging. The confused team clusters together. Exactly as he planned. One flashbang grenade recovered from his arsenal does the rest. 3 go down in the confusion. The 4th manages to squeeze off a burst from his automatic weapon before Shadow takes him out of the fight. The shots go wide, hitting Marcus's tractor. The spark ignites leaking fuel, and suddenly the night is lit by burning machinery. "Bravo. Team, report!" A voice crackles through a radio on one of the downed men. "We've lost Alpha's signals." Marcus retrieves the radio, analyzing the voice. American accent, but with subtle inflections that suggest extensive time spent in Eastern Europe. He recognizes the speech pattern. Private military contractors, probably ex-Spetsnaz. More vehicles approach from multiple directions, their engines purposefully muted. Marcus counts at least 3 teams converging on his position. They're learning, adapting to his tactics. The next wave won't be so easily fooled. Rex's low growl through his earpiece signals movement from the north. Marcus drops prone in the wheat, watching through his scope as shadows detach themselves from the tree line. This group moves with professional precision, tight formation, proper spacing, disciplined trigger control. A bullet impacts inches from his position. The sniper from earlier is still out there, trying to pin him down for the assault teams. Marcus rolls into a drainage ditch, feeling the impacts of follow-up shots tracking his movement. "Target is using the irrigation channels for cover," a heavily accented voice reports. "Activate the package." The ground trembles slightly. In the distance, something begins humming with mechanical purpose. Marcus's blood runs cold as he recognizes the sound. Industrial water pumps, hijacked and reversed. His own irrigation system is about to become a death trap. He has seconds to decide. Stay in the ditch and drown, or break cover and face the sniper. A third option presents itself as Shadow's bark carries across the farm. The dog has found something. Marcus triggers his backup plan. Thermite charges planted years ago in case of exactly this type of situation ignite along the irrigation main line. The system explodes in a cascade of fire and steam, cutting off the flood and creating a wall of cover. Through the chaos, he makes out Shadow's position. The dog has cornered someone in the barn, someone important enough to have 3. Guards protecting them. The pieces click together. The tactical coordinator, the one running this assault. All units converge on the barn. The radio crackles. Protect the package at all costs. Marcus allows himself a grim smile. They're finally making mistakes. Clustering their forces, protecting a high-value target, giving him a single point of focus. Just like Petrov, they've underestimated what one highly trained operator can do on his own ground. Rex and Shadow move into flanking positions without commands, reading his intent through years of partnership. The night is about to get much worse for the invaders, because Marcus Thompson isn't just defending his farm anymore, he's hunting. Marcus sights the barn through his rifle scope, analyzing entry points and defensive positions. The guards have set up a professional perimeter, 2 on the ground, 1 in the hayloft. Inside, their high-value target coordinates the assault. Through encrypted channels, each transmission brings more hostiles closer to his position. His satellite phone vibrates, a message from his old handler. Kandahar wasn't an extraction. You were being used. Drive contains proof of Project Blackstone. Contingency activated. Trust no one. The message raises more questions than answers, but there's no time to dwell. A new sound cuts through the night. Helicopter rotors approaching from the east. Not police or medical. The pitch and rhythm belong to military-grade transport choppers. All units hold position, the barn radio crackles. Air support arriving in 5 minutes. Prepare for payload delivery. Marcus patches into the local emergency frequency. Sheriff Mills's voice comes through, tense with urgency. Thompson, we've got reports of armed men converging on all access roads. They're boxing us out, setting up blockades. State police are being redirected by false orders. Something big is happening. Jim, get your people back, Marcus responds, mind racing through implications. This goes higher than we thought. Project Blackstone. It's some kind of sleeper program. Petrov was just the trigger. A burst of gunfire from the farmhouse interrupts them. Marcus's heart stops as he remembers the Wilsons. In the chaos, he'd ordered them to shelter in place. Now muzzle flashes light up their windows. Sarah Wilson's voice suddenly comes through, on an open channel. Marcus, George got to the shotgun, but there's too many. They're not just here for you, they're clearing everyone out. Setting up some kind of operation. The pieces locked together with terrifying clarity. His farm's location, the coordinated response, the military-grade equipment. This isn't just about revenge or a 20-year-old intelligence drive. They're activating something bigger. The helicopter sounds grow closer. Through his scope, Marcus spots guards preparing the barn's roof, not for troops to land, but for something to be delivered. Something in a large, reinforced container. His old handler's words echo. Project Blackstone. A black operations program so classified it needed 20 years and a prison break to activate. And somehow, his quiet farm sits at the center of it all. Sarah, get to the basement, Marcus commands, already moving. The root cellar connects to my emergency tunnel. Follow it to the creek bed. He'd built the escape route years ago, never truly believing he'd need it. But what about, I'll get George, but you need to move now. When you reach the creek, look for Rex. He'll lead you to safety. The helicopter crests the tree line, a massive CH-53C Stallion, definitely not civilian. Its cargo bay doors are open, revealing a dark shape ready for delivery. All units clear the drop zone, the barn radio announces. Project Blackstone initiating final phase. Marcus's farm is about to become ground zero for something catastrophic. But they've made one critical error in their planning. They assumed he was just a retired operator hiding on a farm. They forgot he was the one who got that intelligence drive out of Kandahar in the first place. The one who spent 20 years preparing for them to come finish what they started, and he's about to remind them why that was a mistake. Time becomes a tactical resource as Marcus works. Years of maintaining farm equipment translate into deadly efficiency as he converts everyday tools into weapons. The massive fertilizer tanks become improvised explosive devices. Grain augers transform into defensive barriers. Every piece of equipment holds lethal potential in the hands of someone trained to weaponize the environment. Shadow signals from his position. The helicopter is making its final approach. Marcus checks his watch. 3 minutes until the drop. 4 minutes until his first trap triggers. 5 until the propane lines he's rigged detonate. The barn's high-value target is coordinating the operation through sophisticated communications gear. The radio encryption is military-grade, but Marcus recognizes the pattern. It's an older system he used in Afghanistan. He pulls out his satellite phone, programming it to interfere with their frequencies. "Sir, we're losing contact with the perimeter teams," a guard reports from the barn. "Some kind of interference. The first trap springs." Marcus's modified thresher roars to life, its blades throwing thousands of metal fragments across the eastern approach. The guards dive for cover, their coordinated defense fragmenting into chaos. Through his scope, Marcus spots movement in the Wilsons' house. George is pinned down in the kitchen, returning fire with his old shotgun. The attackers are trying to breach through the back door, not realizing the greenhouse adjacent to it has been turned into a death trap. "George," Marcus transmits on a local frequency, "remember how you helped me install that new irrigation system for your tomatoes last spring?" A chuckle comes through the radio. "The one with the high-pressure nozzles?" "Sure do. Hit the red valve. Now." Pressurized water explodes through modified sprinkler heads, now loaded with industrial cleaner. The attackers scream as caustic liquid hits them at fire hose pressure. George's shotgun finishes what the chemical started. The helicopter hovers over the barn, preparing to lower its cargo. Marcus spots something odd about the pilot's movements, too rigid, almost robotic. His mind flashes to the latest military tech briefings he'd received before retiring. Autonomous systems, remote piloting, shadow, barn door, he commands. The dog bursts from cover, drawing fire from the guards. The distraction gives Marcus the seconds he needs to target the barn's foundation points. 3 precise shots with armor-piercing rounds strike load-bearing beams. The structure groans. The guards look up as decades-old wood begins to splinter. Their tactical coordinator shouts orders, trying to salvage the operation, not realizing they're playing into Marcus's plan. His modified grain auger shifts into position, its powerful mechanics now serving a darker purpose. At the press of a button, hundreds of pounds of metal scrap, collected over years of farming, launch through the barn's failing walls. The guards fall like dominoes. The helicopter pilot, or its remote operator, realizes the danger. Too late. The barn's collapse has created a vortex of debris and dust, playing havoc with sensors and visibility. The cargo container swings wildly, its unknown contents throwing off the aircraft's balance. Marcus triggers his final trap. The fertilizer tanks explode in sequence, their blast waves calculated to intersect at the helicopter's position. The aircraft spins, struggling against forces its automated systems never trained for. The cargo container breaks free, plummeting toward the barn's remains. Marcus catches a glimpse of warning symbols on its surface, biological hazard markers, radiation warnings, and something else, something that makes his blood run cold. Project Blackstone isn't just an operation, it's a weapon, and it's about to hit his farm. The cargo container strikes the barn in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Marcus is already moving, knowing what comes next. The container's seals crack on impact, not an accident, but a designed failsafe. Green mist begins seeping from the wreckage, catching the moonlight like toxic fog. His sat phone chirps with another message from his handler. Blackstone, bioweapon, activated by specific DNA, yours. Get out now. 20 years of questions suddenly have answers. The farmland's strategic location, why they let him live after Kandahar, why Petrov waited so long to strike. Marcus wasn't just a target, he was a key component. His own DNA, collected during his military service, weaponized into something apocalyptic. The helicopter stabilizes, its automated systems compensating for the chaos. Machine guns deploy from its sides, targeting systems locking onto heat signatures. Marcus triggers his remaining Fertilizer charges, creating a wall of fire to confuse its sensors. All units converge. The tactical coordinator's voice comes from the barn's wreckage. She's survived, pulling herself from the debris wearing a sealed hazmat suit. The weapon must activate within 30 minutes of exposure or the entire operation fails. Marcus's rifle cracks 3 times. The helicopter's guns shred empty air as its targeting sensors explode. The aircraft wavers, its AI struggling to compensate for damaged systems. More attackers emerge from the darkness wearing protective gear. They move with desperate purpose now, abandoning tactical caution. Whatever's in that container, exposure isn't their concern. Time is... Shadow's warning bark cuts through the chaos. More vehicles approaching, heavy engines, armor plating. Not just mercenaries now. Someone higher up has joined the game. The toxic mist spreads across his wheat field, killing plants on contact. Marcus feels nothing yet, confirming his handler's warning. The weapon was designed for his genetic signature. Everyone else is collateral damage. George Wilson's voice crackles through the radio. Marcus! Sarah's clear, but I'm seeing something strange. Military vehicles, but no markings. They're setting up some kind of perimeter. Stay hidden, Marcus orders, dispatching 2 more attackers with precise shots. This goes beyond mercenaries. We're dealing with... A massive explosion cuts him off. One of the unmarked military vehicles detonates, flipped through the air by some unseen force. Then another, and another. Did you really think I'd let them take you? A new voice cuts through all frequencies. Female, authoritative, familiar. Asset recovery team incoming. Hold position. Marcus knows that voice. Colonel Sarah Hayes, his former commanding officer. The one who sent him into Kandahar. The one who disappeared after everything went wrong. The tactical coordinator screams orders, trying to rally her forces. Contain the weapon. The colonel is trying to... Her words end in a wet gurgle. A shadow detaches from the darkness behind. A figure moving with lethal grace. Even after 15 years, Marcus recognizes that fighting style. Hey, farm boy, Captain Lisa Chen, his old teammate, speaks through a tactical mask as she retrieves her knife. Sorry we're late. Traffic was hell. The night erupts with new violence as Marcus's old unit engages the remaining hostiles. Professional, coordinated, ruthless. This isn't a rescue mission, it's a cleanup operation. Marcus chambers his last round, watching the helicopter's AI finally lose control. The aircraft spins toward his remaining fuel tanks, exactly as planned. Sometimes the best weapons are the simplest ones. The explosion lights up the night like false dawn. Somewhere in the inferno, the bioweapons container ruptures completely. No, they're all on a deadline, and Marcus still doesn't know whose side he's really on. The Wilson house stands like a fortress in the chaos. George's shotgun blasts, keeping attackers at bay, but Marcus knows it won't last. The old farmer is running out of ammunition, and the biological weapon's green mist is creeping closer to their position. Chen, status on the Wilsons, Colonel Hayes commands through the tactical frequency. Negative on extraction, Lisa responds, dropping 2 more hostiles with mechanical efficiency. Northern approach is too hot. They've got some kind of second. Team setting up heavy weapons. Marcus checks his remaining resources. 3 magazines, 2 grenades, a farm full of improvised traps, most already spent. And somewhere in the darkness, Shadow is still running his assigned patrol pattern, guarding the escape tunnel's exit, where Sarah Wilson should be emerging. Marcus! George's voice is steady despite the gunfire around him. Sarah's not responding on the radio. The words hit harder than any bullet. Marcus switches frequencies, trying to raise Rex, who was supposed to be guiding her to safety. Static answers. Colonel, Marcus keys his radio. The tunnel. They knew about the tunnel. Hayes swears, with military precision. Chen, take the high ground. Marcus, get to the extraction point. Everyone else converge on... A new sound drowns her out. Rotors, lots of them, but not military aircraft this time. News helicopters. They're broadcasting, Chen reports, her scope scanning the sky. Multiple channels. Whatever agency Black Ops team is running containment just lost their coverage. This goes public in 3, 2. Searchlights illuminate the battlefield. That was once Marcus's farm. Camera crews capture the toxic green mist, the bodies, the unmarked military vehicles. No chance of covering this up now. Marcus! George's urgent voice breaks through. Found Sarah's phone. There's a video. You need to see this. The camera feed shows Sarah Wilson reaching the tunnel exit. Shows Rex meeting her as planned. Shows them both being taken by figures in unmarked tactical gear. But it's the last frame that changes everything. A clear shot of the team leader's face. Hayes, Marcus's voice turns to ice. That's you on the video. 8 hours ago. Silence fills the tactical frequency. Then a different voice responds. The real Colonel Hayes, speaking from somewhere beyond the perimeter. I'm looking at the same feed, Marcus. That's not me. That's Agent Hayes, my twin sister. The one who actually sent you to Kandahar 20 years ago. The pieces lock into place. The identical voice on the radio. The precision of the attacks. The intimate knowledge of Marcus's defenses. For 20 years, he'd been living under the protection of one Hayes sister, while the other waited to activate him. Agency cleanup team incoming, the first Hayes announces, dropping her deception. No witnesses, no evidence. The weapon must complete its coding sequence. Marcus, move, the real Hayes commands. Sarah's still alive. They need both of you for the weapon's final phase. Your DNA was only half the sequence. The news helicopter's spotlights catch the full tableau. Marcus's farm burning, toxic clouds spreading, two identical military commanders directing opposite sides of an invisible war. And at the center, a simple farmer who's beginning to remember he was never simple at all. George chambers his last shotgun shell. You know what this means, Marcus? Your quiet retirement just got a hell of a lot louder. Marcus checks his weapons one last time. Sarah's out there, being used as bait in a game spanning decades. The weapon in his blood is counting down, and somewhere in the chaos, two sisters are playing out a family feud with global stakes. Time to remind everyone why he was the best operative Hayes, either Hayes, ever commanded. The real Colonel Hayes's voice cuts through the chaos. Marcus, the weapon isn't what you think. Blackstone wasn't a weapons program. It was a cure they twisted into something else. Marcus moves through the shadows of his burning farm, processing the revelation. A cure for what? The next pandemic, the one they knew was coming. Your DNA. It's naturally resistant to multiple engineered pathogens. They didn't choose you for Kandahar randomly. They chose you because your blood was the key. The green mist swirling around him takes on new meaning. Not a weapon seeking its target, but a delivery system waiting for its final component. Sarah Wilson's capture wasn't about leverage. It was about compatible DNA. My weekly blood tests. Sarah's voice suddenly comes through the radio, weak but alive. All those years as your neighbor, they weren't for my heart condition, were they, Agent Hayes? No. The agency Hayes responds, dropping all pretense. They were compatibility screenings. Marcus's DNA provides the base structure, but we needed a specific genetic marker to complete the sequence, one that only appears in a few hundred people worldwide. You were the closest match we found. Marcus reaches the edge of his property, where the wheat fields meet the forest. The news helicopter's spotlights create shifting patterns of light and shadow. Perfect cover for what comes next. 20 years, he transmits, letting them trace his signal. You kept us close, monitored our every move. Petrov, the farm location, the Wilsons moving in next door, none of it was coincidence. We created a controlled environment, Agent Hayes explains. A living laboratory disguised as a quiet retirement. Everything was designed to keep you both within parameters until the sequence was ready. Parameters for what? George demands, still holding. His position in the House, Colonel Hayes answers first, to save humanity. The original plan was to use your combined DNA markers to create a universal vaccine, protection against every engineered biological weapon in development. But some of us saw a better opportunity, her sister cuts in. Why cure the disease when you can control it? The same genetic sequence that provides immunity can also be turned into a targeting system. Imagine biological weapons that only affect specific DNA patterns, the ultimate precision weapon. The full scope of Project Blackstone finally emerges from the shadows. Not just a weapon or a cure, but a dividing line, a way to choose who lives and who dies at the genetic level. Marcus spots movement in the tree line. Sarah Wilson being escorted by tactical teams toward a waiting vehicle. She's not restrained. She's walking under her own power, head held high. I volunteered. Sarah's voice comes through clearly now. When they approached me 15 years ago, I agreed to monitor you, to be the backup sequence if everything went wrong. I'm sorry, Marcus, but what they're creating, it's bigger than any of us. The news helicopters suddenly veer off, their electronics scrambled by some unseen force. The battlefield plunges into darkness as every light within a mile radius dies. Simultaneously, satellite coverage in 3 minutes, Agent Hayes announces. All teams prepare for... Her transmission cuts off as a new voice enters the frequency. Ancient, powerful, carrying the weight of decades of secret authority. Project Blackstone was never about weapons or cures, the voice states. It was about transformation, evolution, and after 20 years of preparation, all the pieces are finally in position. Marcus recognizes the voice. Everyone in covert operations would recognize it. The director, the one person even the Hayes sisters answer to. Welcome to Phase 3, Mr. Thompson. The real work is about to begin. A black helicopter emerges from the clouds, unmarked and running dark. Its design is decades ahead of anything Marcus has ever seen in service. As it lands in the burning remains of his wheat field, the green mist parts around it like water, revealing an elderly man in an immaculate suit stepping onto scorched earth. The director moves with the confidence of someone who's never needed to rush. Both Hayes sisters immediately stand at attention. Even the news helicopters circling miles away seem to give him a wider berth. Your DNA isn't just resistant to pathogens, Mr. Thompson. The director speaks, as if they're having a casual conversation. It adapts, evolves. Combined with Sarah Wilson's unique genetic markers, it becomes something else entirely. Something that can rewrite the human genome itself. Marcus keeps his rifle trained on the director, though he knows it's pointless. A man with this much power doesn't fear bullets. Evolution needs guidance, direction, the director continues. Humanity is stagnating. War, disease, climate collapse, all symptoms of a species reaching its limitations. Project Blackstone isn't a weapon or a cure. It's the next step. You're talking about forced genetic modification, Colonel Hayes realizes, horror creeping into her voice. Global scale. I'm talking about survival. The director's eyes gleam with zealous conviction. The mist isn't just reading DNA, it's rewriting it. Everyone exposed tonight is already changing. In 24 hours, the effects become permanent. In a week, they become hereditary. Sarah Wilson steps forward, standing beside the director. The same fire burns in her eyes. I saw the simulations, Marcus, the improvements, enhanced immunity, accelerated healing, increased cognitive function. We can guarantee humanity's survival. We can make everyone stronger. Not everyone, Marcus counters, the final piece clicking into place. Just the ones you choose. That's why you needed my DNA's adaptive properties. You're creating a genetic override, a way to control who gets upgraded and who doesn't. Control is evolution, the director states simply. Nature selects. We're just expediting the process. Marcus feels the changes starting in his blood. Heightened senses, sharper reflexes, cells rebuilding themselves with terrifying efficiency, everything that made him the perfect soldier, amplified and ready to be weaponized. 20 years, he says quietly. You let me believe I was free. Let me build this life. All of it was just part of your experiment, not all of it. The director gestures at the burning farm, the scattered bodies, the tactical teams still holding their positions. Your skills, your preparations, your paranoia, we needed those too. Because evolution requires conflict. The strong must be tested. A flash of movement catches Marcus's enhanced vision. George Wilson, using the chaos to work his way closer, his shotgun still ready. The old farmer's hands don't shake as he takes aim at the director. Sarah, George calls out to his wife, remember what you always said about playing God? Sarah Wilson hesitates, decades of marriage warring with fanatical conviction. In that moment of distraction, Marcus makes his move. His enhanced muscles launch him forward with inhuman speed, but the director simply smiles. That's it, the old man whispers. Show us what humanity can become. The night erupts with gunfire as both Hayes sisters open up with their tactical teams. Marcus's farm becomes a battleground between evolution and free will, between a planned future and the right to choose it. And at the center of it all, a simple farmer has to decide, accept the change already burning through his veins, or fight against becoming the harbinger of humanity's forced evolution. Power surges through Marcus's enhanced body as he takes cover behind his overturned tractor. His mind processes tactical information with frightening speed, calculating trajectories and attack vectors faster than humanly possible. The director's genetic modifications are working exactly as designed, turning him into the perfect weapon. The changes will be complete within the hour, the director's voice carries across the battlefield. Every cell in your body is being optimized, improved. Don't fight it, Mr. Thompson. Embrace the evolution. Marcus's heightened senses pick up every detail of the chaos around him. The crystalline sound of shell casings hitting dirt, the infrared signatures of tactical teams moving through the smoke, the microscopic changes in air pressure as the news helicopters circle miles away, still broadcasting this watershed moment to the world. Sarah, George's voice cuts through the gunfire. Whatever they promised you, whatever you believe this will achieve, look around. This isn't evolution, it's extinction. Through the green mist, Marcus spots Sarah Wilson wavering. Her enhanced DNA is changing too, but something in her husband's words reaches past the zealotry. The director notices her hesitation. Contain Mrs. Wilson, he orders coldly. Her genetic sequence is too valuable to risk. Both Hayes sisters move at once, the colonel to protect Sarah, the agent to capture her. Their identical tactical styles create a lethal mirror match as they clash, decades of sibling rivalry exploding into violence. Marcus's enhanced vision catches a glint of metal in the tree line. Sniper teams setting up kill zones. Their rifles are loaded with darts, not bullets. The director doesn't want anyone dying before the genetic modifications take hold. You feel it, don't you? The director continues, walking calmly through the combat. The power, the potential. Imagine this perfection spread across the globe, a humanity free from weakness, from disease, from the flaws that hold us back. Rex and Shadow emerge from the darkness, moving with the same enhanced speed as their master. The dog's DNA has changed too, creating something more than mere animals. Their eyes glow with predatory intelligence as they flank the director. Your own body is proving me right, the old man smiles. Even your loyal companions are evolving. The future cannot be stopped, Mr. Thompson. It can only be guided. Marcus feels the truth in those words. Every second brings new changes, new abilities. His muscles operate at peak efficiency. His wounds heal almost instantly. His brain processes combat data like a military supercomputer. But with the enhancement comes something else. Memories, sharper and clearer than ever before. The simple pleasures of farming. The peace he'd found in growing things instead of destroying them. The community he'd built. The life he'd chosen. Last chance, Marcus, the director offers. Join us willingly. Help us guide humanity's ascension. Your farm can become the cradle of a new species. George Wilson chambers his final shotgun shell. The sound echoing across the battlefield. Sarah Wilson looks between her husband and the director, evolution warring with love. The Hayes sisters battle for control of humanity's future, while their tactical teams maneuver for the killing stroke. And Marcus Thompson, the simple farmer cursed with extraordinary DNA, makes his choice. Because some evolutions aren't about becoming stronger or faster or smarter. Sometimes the most powerful evolution is remembering what made you human in the first place. Shadow Rex, he commands, protect the Wilsons. Then Marcus Thompson, enhanced beyond human limits, but choosing to remain human anyway, steps out to face the director. Behind him, his farm burns. Above him, the world watches, and within him, the perfect weapon decides to fight against its own perfection. The final battle for humanity's right to choose its own evolution is about to begin. Marcus's enhanced muscles launch him across the battlefield with inhuman speed. The director doesn't flinch as the perfect weapon he created hurtles toward him. Instead, he smiles, revealing teeth too white, too perfect. He's enhanced too. Their collision breaks the sound barrier. Marcus's tactical mind registers the impossible physics of their combat. Punches that could shatter steel, reactions measured in microseconds, bodies moving faster than human eyes can track. The director matches him move for move, decades of genetic modification making him more monster than man. Magnificent, the director exults between devastating blows. This is what humanity can become. This is the power we can give them. Around them, chaos erupts. The Hayes sisters' battle reaches its peak as years of mirrored training and shared DNA create a lethal stalemate. Their tactical teams exchange fire while Sarah Wilson, her own enhancement taking hold, breaks free of her captors with unexpected strength. "George, get down!" Sarah screams as her enhanced senses detect incoming fire. Her husband drops just as sniper rounds slash through the air where he stood. Something of the old Sarah remains beneath the modification. Love stronger than evolution. Rex. And Shadow move like liquid shadow, their enhanced bodies turning friendly farm dogs into apex predators. They coordinate with terrifying intelligence, herding the tactical teams into killing zones. Man's best friends becoming man's perfect warriors. Marcus drives the director back with a combination of enhanced power and decades of combat experience. But the old man's modifications are more refined, more complete. Each blow Marcus lands heals instantly. Each advantage he gains is quickly countered. "You still don't understand," the director laughs, catching Marcus's fist with impossible strength. "I've been evolving for 30 years. You're just a prototype, a proof of concept for what comes next." The director's counterattack sends Marcus crashing through his barn's remains. His enhanced body absorbs impact that would kill a normal human, but the director is already on him, moving with blinding speed. Each strike is precisely calculated to cause maximum damage, even to their enhanced physiology. "Sir," Agent Hayes calls out, "the genetic modifications are reaching critical mass. If we don't stabilize the sequence, let it progress," the director commands. "Humanity's next evolution will be written in their DNA or their obituaries. Either way, the strong will survive." Marcus feels the changes accelerating inside him. His tactical mind runs calculations faster than any computer, mapping every possible outcome. The director is right. They're beyond human now. Beyond anything nature intended. But nature isn't what makes us human. Marcus's hands find familiar tools in the barn's wreckage, simple farming implements he's used for 20 years. His enhanced mind combines them with lethal efficiency, but it's his farmer's knowledge that makes them truly dangerous. The director recognizes the threat too late. His perfect evolution, his tactical supremacy, means nothing against the practical experience of a man who's worked this land with these tools for decades. Marcus becomes a whirlwind of lethal agricultural innovation, turning simple farming equipment into anti-enhanced weaponry. "Kill him!" the director roars, his composure finally cracking. The command ends in a gurgle as Marcus drives a modified threshing blade through his enhanced chest. The director's perfect body tries to heal, but Marcus's knowledge of farm equipment proves greater than genetic modification. The wounds are too massive, too specialized, too precisely targeted. Evolution is natural, Marcus tells the dying director. It's not something you control, not something you force. It's like farming. You can plant the seeds, but you have to let them grow on their own. The director's last words carry both fury and revelation. You've doomed them. Without guidance, the evolution will be random. That's the point, Marcus answers, as the director's enhanced body finally fails. Evolution without choice isn't evolution at all. It's just another kind of death. The battle still rages across Marcus's farm, but its center is gone. Now he has to decide what to do with the power burning through his veins and the choice his victory has given humanity. Sometimes the hardest part of fighting monsters isn't defeating them, it's choosing not to become them. The director's death creates a vacuum of power and purpose. The green mist still swirls across Marcus's farm, changing everyone it touches. The Hayes sisters pause their deadly duel, realizing the mission they've fought over no longer has a master. Charge. Modification process is accelerating, Colonel Hayes reports, checking readings on her tactical display. Without the director's stabilizing agent, the genetic changes are becoming unpredictable. We've got maybe 10 minutes before it's irreversible. Marcus feels it in his enhanced body. The power that made him superhuman is growing unstable, shifting, in ways even his tactical mind can't predict. Around him, others show similar signs. Sarah Wilson's enhanced strength fluctuates wildly. The tactical teams begin to lose control of their modifications. There's a failsafe, Agent Hayes reveals, her perfect facade cracking. A kill switch in the original formula. That's why he needed both DNA sequences, Marcus's adaptability, Sarah's. Specific markers. Together, they can either complete the evolution or end it. How? Sarah demands, holding George's hand despite her unstable powers. Your combined blood introduced to the catalyst agent. It'll either stabilize the changes permanently or reverse them completely. But it has to be a conscious choice. Both donors have to willingly give their blood, knowing what it'll do. The weight of the decision falls on Marcus and Sarah. With a single choice, they'll determine the future of human evolution. Around them, the affected continue to change. Some grow stronger, others begin to break down. The modifications are as random as nature itself. We can still complete his vision, Agent Hayes urges. Create the perfect humanity he wanted. All that power under our control. Or we can end it, her sister counters. Let humanity evolve at its own pace, in its own way. Sarah looks at George, her enhanced eyes taking in every detail of her husband's unchanged face. All these years, I believed we were helping create something better. But looking at you now, completely human, what right do we have to force this change on anyone? Marcus watches his dogs, their enhanced bodies trembling with power they never asked for. He thinks of his farm, of the simple life he chose after years of being the perfect weapon, of the peace he found in letting things grow naturally. Evolution isn't about becoming perfect, he says finally. It's about becoming what you choose to be. The decision makes itself. Marcus and Sarah combine their blood with the catalyst. Their choice transforms the green mist into something new. Across the battlefield, the changes begin to reverse. Enhanced. Bodies return to normal. Perfect soldiers become human again. Agent Hayes screams in fury, raising her weapon for one last act of defiance. Her sister moves to stop her, but someone else is faster. George Wilson's final shotgun blast catches the agent squarely, proving that normal humans can still make choices that change the world. The news helicopters capture it all. The mist dissipating, the enhanced returning to normal, humanity choosing its own path. Marcus feels the power leaving his body and welcomes it. He's been a weapon before. This time, he chooses to be just a farmer. Sarah hugs George, their love surviving. Evolution itself. The Hayes sisters face a reckoning of their own, one that will play out in courtrooms rather than battlefields. And Marcus's farm, though scarred by combat, remains fertile ground for natural growth. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in becoming stronger, but in choosing to remain who you are. Even if who you are is just a simple farmer who wants to. Let things grow in their own time, their own way. The world will debate the choice they made tonight. But for now, Marcus Thompson has fields to tend. Because no matter what evolution brings, the land still needs farming. And this time, he's farming it as exactly what he chose to be, human. 3 months after the battle, Marcus's farm shows signs of healing. New wheat grows in the scorched fields, green shoots pushing through soil once stained with blood. Nature, as always, finds its way forward. The government cleanup crews are finally gone, their work erasing most physical evidence of Project Blackstone. But they can't erase the memories or the changes the event brought to the quiet farming community. World's different now, Sheriff Mills comments, helping Marcus repair his barn's roof. Knowing what's possible, what we could become, makes some folks restless. Marcus understands. The news footage of that night went viral. Super soldiers battling on a farm, humanity's brush with forced evolution. Debates rage about genetic modification, about choice versus progress, about the future of human development. Folks keep asking why I chose to stay normal, Sarah Wilson says during her weekly visit. She and George still bring pies, still act like neighbors. Some bonds survive even evolutionary tampering. They don't understand that being human, being exactly who you are, that's the real evolution. Colonel Hayes took control of the remnants of Project Blackstone, ensuring its research serves humanity rather than controls it. Her sister awaits. Trial, though some say she's just the first of many who dream of forcing human evolution. The director's vision lives on in others. Rex and Shadow show no lasting effects from their enhancement, though their protective instincts remain sharper. They patrol the farm's borders with renewed purpose, guarding against threats both mundane and extraordinary. The scientific community pores over the data, studying the possibility of controlled genetic modification. But they do it cautiously. Now, aware of both the potential and the price, humanity edges toward its next evolutionary step, but at its own pace, making its own choices. Marcus returns to his routines. Planting, harvesting, nurturing growth. His weapons cache remains hidden but maintained. Some habits don't change. Yet when he watches the sunset over his fields, he feels only peace. The warrior and the farmer have finally found their balance. You ever miss it? George asks one evening. The power, the potential. Marcus looks at his calloused hands, strong from honest work rather than genetic enhancement. Some things are better left to grow naturally, he answers. The farm stands as both memorial and promise, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength isn't in its potential for physical evolution, but in its power to choose its own path, even if that path leads right back to where it started, Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can be is exactly who you are.